Hello guys, and welcome back to the Intro to Cinema 4D Part 2. I think I won't spend much more time in explaining the details of these tools and all that. Let me just go ahead and just just give you a basic intro to the tools. First, we have the selection, the live selection. So if you click there, click and hold on that, you have the live selection. Then we have rectangle selection, lasso selection, polygon selection. So let's try to insert a cube. Using the live selection, I'm able to move my cube right along the X, Z, and Y axis. Next, you have the move selection, the move tool. Sorry, you have the move tool. The move tool does the very same thing as the live selection. I'm able to move it, up and down like that. The only difference is the attributes. When I have my move tool, I have a different attributes panel, and if I select the live selection, I also have a different attributes panel. So let's move on to the move tool. I am able to move my object even though I haven't clicked on it. I've clicked somewhere beside it, but then if I try to drag, I'm able to move it. While the live selection, if I click there and drag, nothing happens. It's more like I have deselected it. Alright, next let's move on to the scale tool. So I can scale the size of my object to be small or big, it doesn't matter. I can scale the size. I also have my my attributes for the scale tool. Next, I have the rotate tool, so I can rotate my object, any degrees that I want, from left to right. When you drag your mouse from left to right, you have the rotation and all that. To undo, I simply go with the Control Z, or you can go with this button right here. To redo, you go with this button. Next, we have this more like a history, a tool history. It shows you which tools you have previously used. So we started using the move tool, then we went to the live selection tool, then we went to the scale tool, then we went to the rotation tool. So it's more like a history for the tools that you have recently used. Then we have the render buttons. These are the render buttons. If I hit render right now, it's more like a render preview, right? I just want to render the current scene, just as it says, a render preview, right? Next, we have if we click and hold on that, we have different renders. We have the render region. That is to say, I have my scene right here. I want to go ahead and render a region. I can click and drag which section I want to render. I will only render that section. And then we have the render active objects. That means I will only be able to render the objects that are active. In this case, they have this green tick. Render to picture viewer. That means that's the final render. Make preview and all that. Render queue. I'm able to add different projects to this render queue. They can all be rendering in it's more like a render line. You have different objects waiting to be rendered, so you end up to the render queue. So next we have the render settings. If I try to click there, this window will come. So I will have my render settings. In this case, output, maybe I might choose the output to be an HDTV. That is, if I'm working on an animation, I will choose it to be an HDTV. And if you click on HDTV and then you go with the log ratio, and then let's say that this is you go ahead with 1280, it will automatically calculate the height for you to give you the HDTV height for that width. If I go ahead with 800, it will give me the HDTV height for that. So we have different film aspects. We have the square, all that, 35mm steel and all that. So it's up to you to change those. And if you're working on an animation, you might choose to say, okay, fine, I want to render, let's say here, the frame range. You want to render current frame only. That is if you are you want to render maybe a picture. But if you are rendering an animation, you say, you know, all frames, you know, it will render all frames from 0 to 90. Since we have 90 frames in our scene, it will render all frames. Then we have the save. This is where you can choose where to save your project, your final project, your final rendered project. So you might create a folder where you will be you know, rendering, where you'll be saving your project for the final render, the format which you want to use, and all that. Then we have the multipass. I think we'll get into detail about that later, anti-aliasing and all that. So we also have the effects here. We also get into detail. We will be using most of these effects as we go on. Here we have the renderer. We have right now we're in the standard render. We have the physical software, hardware, and assignment. V-Ray Bridge is a plugin that you add to your Cinema 4D. In this case, I added V-Ray for my render settings. So that's the render settings. Next we have the objects. I think that's what we discussed in the part 1, intro to Cinema 4D. But now I just want to discuss with you one thing, which is the now object. So if you click on that, we have our now object. It's more like it's an empty thing. It's nothing, right? It's more like just you have created more like a group, but then there isn't any object in it. So if I try to, let's say, create a cube and a sphere, and then I try to highlight them all and move them into the now. The now will be the main parent for both of these guys. So let me go to my sphere and try to move it maybe somewhere else along the z-axis, something like that. And then I go on my now object, and then I try to rotate the now object. You find out it is affecting each and every object in it, right? Which is more like yeah, it is affecting all the it is affecting both the cube and the sphere. They're all being rotated according to the now thing. So if I try to rotate it, they're all rotating. So this is what you mostly use when you're animating, when you're carrying out an animation. All right, fine, we delete that. Next we have the splines. Splines is more like a fancy way of saying a path, right? So you can create a path, you can create your own path on your scene, or in this case we can say we can add maybe a text path. If we add a text path and we try to hit render, we will see nothing at all, because it is just a path. We have not yet defined anything to it. So I can add a NURBS, the NURBS, which is another part, the NURBS, which will define the path into a 3D thing, So if I add a NURB and try to hit render, nothing will happen. Why? Because the NURB needs to have a child in which to act upon. In this case, the text needs to be a child of the NURBS. So if I take the text to and drag it in until that small black arrow showing down shows, if I drag it in there, making it the child of the Extrude NURB, and then I hit render, you have the 3D text showing. So I have my attribute, I have my Extrude NURBS attributes showing here. So I can simply increase the 20, which is by the way, when you see this 0 0 20, we are standing for X, Y, Z. So if we increase the number of Z, you find that you see that the number of Z is 20 centimeters. That means we are talking of this width right here, from that to there. This is 20 centimeters. So if I increase that to something like maybe 100 centimeters, that is it. That's 100 centimeters right now. That we have 100 centimeters thick text showing there. So I can choose to maybe to have a different font there. Let's go ahead and choose a different font. maybe copper black. Alright, I have my copper black showing there, and then I try to hit render. I have my copper black showing. By the way, we are using default light and camera, so let me add a light to our scene, and let me move it upward, something like that, and let me change the alright, let me not get into detail about that, but that's how you add light. So you have the light and its attributes. So I think we will be discussing more on this, but for the time being, let me just say we add an infinite light, which is more like a sun or something like that, an infinite light. So you have added an infinite light. We try to hit render. We have this kind of, you know, showing up, this text, this thing showing up. Alright, I think let me not get into you know, this. Maybe I might be confusing most of you guys, right? Let me just go ahead like this, the basics. So here you're saying fine, you love the way your text is showing, something like that, maybe yeah, something like that, but maybe you want to have them, you want them to have a smooth edge, right? So you go to the extrude NURB, and then you go to caps. Caps, you have the start caps and the end caps. Start caps are standing showing these you know, these ends at the front. So you can choose to add maybe affiliate caps there. You have noticed that we have increased the, we have added a step or something like that. So when you call out steps, that means this is the step. Let's increase that to something like 3, and decrease the radius, which is the width of let me zoom in for you to see well, which is this right here, which is the, that's the width. No, yeah, let me add that to something like 1. So that's our fillet caps. So if I try to hit render right now, render preview, you find out that we have now these, you know, cool looking edges, you know, which are getting that light, that default light reflection and all that. So we can choose yeah, that's it. We can have something like that. Maybe you're working on a poster and then you want it to have some 3D text, or some magazine, you want it to have just something like a 3D text. Maybe you can just hit render at that angle, you already like it. In this case, you don't need to go to the end caps, unless maybe maybe your client says, maybe we like the way you made that 3D text. Can't you make an animation or something like that? Maybe making the text spin around or something like that. So you might, at that time, you might want to add the end caps. Why? It's all because your text will be in this case, the 3D text will be rotating. That means you'll be viewing your text from back to front. So let's say, for example, your animation is going that side, you're animating view, this is just spinning around. You find out here you have this smooth, this cool looking, you know, text, right? But then when you flip around it, you find out that we have these, you know, not looking good, you know, back ends, you know, which are you know, not good at all. So you can try to save end caps. You go to fillet cap, and then you add the very same amount as to this start caps, maybe 3 centimeters, and then that going to 1 centimeter. So if you try to hit render, you will know that your animation will just be perfect. That is if you are moving, that is if your text is spinning around, you know, you're spinning there, going there, spinning there, going there. It's so just perfect, right? And then it stops, something like that. So that's what those are the attributes for the extrude NURB. All right, next we can choose to hide our extrude NURBS, right, by simply clicking on that blue tick. So you can choose to hide both this and this. It's all the same, it's all up to you. In this case, I want to add some, I want to show you another way of adding 3D text. So let me just delete the NURBS. Another way of adding 3D text is to go to more graph, more text. So you have added your 3D text. If you go here, let's maybe let's say Edward, right? You have added Edward there, and so you choose a different font. Let's go ahead and choose something like velocity, right? We add something like velocity. So we move something like that. So it looks quite cool. You like it already. So you can go to your MoText. In the properties, you go to the width, which is the depth. In the depth, you can set it to 100 centimeters, which is the how thick your words are, and you can also set them to be aligned in the middle, right? Alignment middle. And what does it mean when you say alignment middle? Okay, let's go to the front view. We had it in the left. You see that? You see that? It is in the left. It is in the left, right? So if you try to go middle, it is on the middle of the Y axis. So that is it. Let's go back to our perspective view. And zoom out. By the way, I'm using my keyboard shortcuts. I'm not using these right here. I'm using the keyboard shortcuts, which are 1, 2, and 3. I think we said that we discussed that in the last tutorial. So you can choose to go in the fitted caps, change the fitted caps, you know, for both sides to 3 and 1, 3 and 1. And you might be asking, how am I moving along here? I'm pressing tab. Alright, so if we try to hit render, we have our cool text showing there. Okay, let me not get into detail about that, but we have our cool text there. I think we will continue from here in the next tutorial, where I will add some texture and you know, add some you know, just to make the entire scene a bit appealing and a bit representable. So let's stop here and go into part 3 of this tutorial. Thanks, guys.